All right, so if you're looking at the agenda right now, and all of you guys should be, it says announcements, quick write, persuasive review, Patrick Henry. And that's kind of the stuff from yesterday. We did not get to Patrick Henry, so I want to kind of jump to that. There is a quick write today, but it's not the quick write that we're familiar with. So after we read Patrick Henry, you'll see what I'm talking about. So it's an SWBST chart. It's dealing with the three little pigs. If you have done that already, that's fine. I know some people have jumped ahead on that. That's fine too. If you jumped ahead on Patrick Henry and seen the SWBST chart on that and done that, that's fine too. I did change the due date, so that's kind of an announcement. The due date is actually tomorrow night, 11:59. The reason I did that is because of the debacle I had yesterday with first period and the electronics and stuff and recording, and we were just able to get to part of that today. So I'm going to go over that in this video here with what we're doing, well, these couple of videos. But I want to introduce you to Patrick Henry, kind of not in the traditional way. And I've already put my book up from last period, and I didn't mean to do that. So maybe I stole it and put it over here. That's what I did. Just can't remember the page number. All right, so Patrick Henry is not, well, he is now, but at the time, he's not necessarily a very, he's not notable. He's not a Thomas Jefferson. He's not George Washington. And they were there when he gave one of his famous speeches. His famous speech was, "Give me liberty, give me death." Everybody remembers it and calls it that speech. They title it that speech, "Give me liberty, give me death." So it's pretty interesting. He's actually tried his hand at farming and a couple of other things and failed. So he is a failure right off the bat. So I don't know if that motivates you or not, but he ended up finding his calling in law. He became a lawyer. I forget at what age, but I do know that he was elected or put into the House of Burgesses at the age of 29, I believe. So here he is, and he is a very, very young lawyer, and he's dealt with quite a bit of responsibilities. So, and we're talking about Patrick Henry. So, and everybody's on Zoom, so just kind of letting you know to come on Zoom with us when you get your stuff together. All right, so what's happening with him at this point, he is not a notable person, just to kind of get you that. And just to familiarize you since you walked in, he's the "give me liberty, give me death" speech person. Everybody knows him according to that. Well, during that time, he gave a speech when he first got in there, and it was against the Stamp Act. And it was very notable. So one of his callings is oral speaking. He's an orator, and he was very good at it. And what's notable, at least I should say what's notable about it, is that the speech that we're going to look at today, "Give me liberty, give me death," speech to the Virginia Convention is actually what it's called. Patrick Henry's speech to the Virginia Convention. He actually probably did not write it down. It's probably off the cuff. But we do not have an official manuscript of it. If he did write it out and give it, then that's fine. We just don't have that copy. What we do have is 10 years after he gave this speech, 10 years after he gave this speech, he was able, or some people were able to put it together based on notes that other members of the House or the Virginia Convention were able to do that. And I think that's pretty notable. But here's the thing I want you guys to learn from his speech. He was not arrogant. He was not condescending. He was, matter of fact, he was very, he was very, very nice, to the people that he disagreed with. He wasn't atomistic to them. He was just Patrick Henry. He was just putting the facts out. All right, so he won. Everybody knows he won the speech. The speech was, "Hey, look, we need to get a militia." And it wasn't, I don't know if it was his idea to form a militia. I don't think that's true, but he was on the side of, "Hey, look, we do need a militia." We all know that Virginia formed a militia after the speech. They voted it up, said, "Okay, let's do this." It was very close. It was, imagine if it wasn't, what would have happened. So, and we'll talk about that later too. But what I want you to understand is And given this speech, Patrick Henry recognized the people that he was speaking to. So in all this speech, all right, so I gotta go backwards. Let's go back to Massachusetts. Let's go back to the Boston Tea Party. Let's go back to where we raided the tea and protesting of the taxes that the British had on us. What did the British do after that happened? Do you remember your history? What did the British do? They sent military up here, and they said, all right, we're going to take over. We're going to be in charge. So, and this is what happened. I'm going to have to read part of it because I'm going to break it up if I don't. Basically what happened is we did say, okay, let's talk to the British and do it. So let me read you this. Let's see. Came 10 years later in 1775. This was a speech. Nearing the breaking point with England, following the Boston Tea Party in December of 1773, the British had closed the port of Boston and had instituted other harsh measures referred to by the colonists as intolerable acts. When the First Continental Congress protested these acts, the British Crown listened. They listened. They said, okay, sure. We're going to relieve you of that taxation. So that worked. All right. So we're going to put it under or make conditions of it. I probably should keep reading rather than put my take on it. So, but do you get it? They listened and they said, sure, we won't tax you, but you have to meet these conditions. The conditions were this: you as colonists are going to have to fully support the military, the British military, on over here. So it's under British rule, under British military rule. That's what you're going to have to support. You have to fully support British rule and contribute towards the maintenance of British troops in America. So that means providing them home, food, clothes if necessary. So would you do that? Think about your house right now. Would you, if someone came and said, you know what, I like your house, I think you should take care of these guys here, and they have weapons, and you're just responsible for them. You probably would not like that. All right. So, and a lot of people obviously did not. So America, whose numbers were, the British numbers were increasing greatly. So the Virginia House of Burgesses held a convention at St. John's Episcopal Church in Richmond to decide how to respond to the growing British military threat. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were at this meeting. So there were a number of guys there who said, you know what, we're going to be okay. It's okay because I think we can accept this British rule. I think we can accept taking care of the military. If it means peace, that's what we're going to do. Well, okay, so several delegates got up and said, hey, we can survive this. We'll be okay. Things are good. Can you imagine if that didn't happen? Can you imagine being under British rule? Can you imagine not having the Revolutionary War at all? What will we be like today? Think about that. What will we be like under British rule today? So, and I know you look at Britain today and it's like, hey, that's no big deal. Britain was in that period of time the single most or the largest military entity in the entire world. The British Empire covered more than half the world. I mean, if you as far as land size or whatever you want to talk about, India, British rule. China, British rule. And that actually changed and they went to just Hong Kong eventually. But think about that. That's big pieces of the world, the earth, India and China. And then plus several other areas, Pacific, Atlantic. And so British encompassed quite a bit. Another comparison, think of them as the new Roman Empire. This is just the British Empire, where the Roman Empire just controlled everything. This is what these guys had to face. So here are these handful of people here in America, here in the colonies, going, how do we stand up against the British military? How do we stand up against this mighty force? So it was huge. All right, so persuasion. This is what I want you guys to learn. The art of persuasion is unique. Some people have it, some people don't. Some people are a matter of fact. I'm not necessarily the most powerful speaker in the world. I know that. I know my limitations. Patrick Henry, on the other hand, realize two things. What are two of the most important aspects of persuasion? We discussed three elements: ethos, pathos, and logos. What are the two most important out of all those? What do you see most in those ads from the other day? Pathos, emotion, heart. Ethos, I'm sorry, that's ethic. Ethos is credibility. Ethics is a moral thing, but that wasn't the big one, or the second big one. The second big one is logos, logic. What's logical? So it makes us think, and makes us, and has our heart. He knew that, and he did this speech. So as he gave this speech, he listened to those speakers who said, we don't need a military, we don't need a militia, we'll be fine under British rule. He listened to them, and that's very important. And this is how he began the speech. You're going to read the speech in just a minute, but I want to just get you started. He did not call the people idiots. We tend to, in our nation, put people down a lot, especially when, when we're trying to get our way, when we're trying to do things on our own. We don't listen necessarily to the other side. We see it in our politics all the time. We seem to be self-conscious rather than looking out for everyone else. But here's Patrick Henry, who has a disagreement with the other side. He knows that we need a militia. This is what he says about the people who he just spoke to. Now, he addresses the president of the convention. He says this: Mr. President, no man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as the abilities of the very worthy gentlemen who have just addressed the House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore I hope it will not be thought disrespectful to those gentlemen if, entertaining as I do, opinions of a character very opposite to theirs. All right, so what he said was, he didn't call them stupid or whatever. He listened to them. He recognized their patriotism. All right, so he flattered them, right? So, but he also said, we have differences. I know that we have differences. And I hope it will not be disrespectful if I differ from what they think. And he's saying this in hopes that they too will listen to him. Remember where I talked about we have perspective on things? When you read something, you have your own perspective based on how you were raised and your surroundings. Maybe it's the time period. That goes here too. And it goes on every day. So what you should learn from Patrick Henry is that each perspective needs to be honored. Maybe if it's their perspective, they have a reason for doing it. Listen to the reasons. But how are you going to counter those reasons? Because these gentlemen are educated gentlemen. These people are very highly respected in their own, counties or whatever at this point. They make good decisions. But right now the decision is different from Patrick Henry's. How does he convince people to vote his way or to go his way? And he didn't say that they were stupid. Definitely wanted to point that out. He says this also: I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. It's kind of like a warning, telling them, let me just have my say. The question before the House is one of awful moment to this country. For my own part, I consider it nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. And in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be the freedom of the debate. So he's saying, look, we should have this freedom to debate. It should not be a harsh thing. And he's not raising his voice at this point. I don't think he necessarily raised his voice at all during the speech. Maybe at the end when he was trying to make his point and drive it home, and everybody remembers the end. As for me, give me liberty or give me death. And at that point, what he did was as soon as he was saying that, he took a letter opener. It was an ivory-handled letter opener. He says, as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And as he said the word death, he plunged, or he acted it out, his knife or his letter opener to the heart. So, so those are pretty strong. I want you to be able to listen to that and hear it as you're reading. So don't read out loud. I did put in on the Patrick Henry thing a way to hear it. So there's an Audible podcast for that if you want to check that out. But go ahead and it only takes like 6 minutes, 7 minutes. I'm going to give you 10. Read Patrick Henry's speech to the Virginia Convention. I have a couple of things after that, and then I'll show you what we're doing today, tomorrow type of thing. So go ahead and read that.